Hi there, my name's Ben and I like to read. Today we are going to be reviewing Edward FitzGerald's The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The one that I have is the Oxford World's Classics version, and whoa, what a book of poetry. Now, the size may be misleading. That's the first thing I'm going to talk to you about. The Rubaiyat itself is only about maybe 30 or so pages, and they're short pages. Essentially, it's a book of poetry, but it's not a direct translation of the poems of Omar Khayyam. But before I get into the actual book, let me give you some background on Omar Khayyam himself. He was a 10th century Persian philosopher, astronomer, poet, essentially one of the pioneers of the Islamic Golden Age. But he did have some he was probably one of the first modern skeptics, if you will. Very, very skeptical of, divine intervention. This is probably because of his studies in astronomy. This is probably because he was a relatively learned man. Not to say that, these people are without their superstitions, and no one's perfect, of course. But it's hard to say that if he was an atheist or not, but essentially he was trying to pull a lot of people out and influence a lot of people away from, actual superstition, and trying to be very, very reasonable. Of course, he had read the works of Aristotle and all of the Greek and Roman philosophers out of there, and that came before him, and essentially he put his own spin on it. But he was also a very, very talented poet. Now, Edward FitzGerald, of course, managed to get a hold of it. He was an Orientalist. He was studying a lot of this stuff, but and again, this isn't really a direct translation of Omar Khayyam, because of course, Omar Khayyam wrote in Farsi, he wrote in Persian, and in Arabic, but FitzGerald, of course, was an Englishman. So, but this book of poems captivated Victorian society at the time. It really allowed for a sort of an obsession with all things Eastern to really take root in that society, which is maybe even all the more extraordinary considering that in 1859, the Rubaiyat by FitzGerald sold no copies. It only really got some momentum when three of his friends, who were very, very big admirers of the book itself, started shipping it. The poem itself, very, very, it's a very bleak outlook on a lot of stuff. That being said, FitzGerald's version does sort of help to turn it a little bit optimistic. It helps to, and of course the language itself, even though it is a translation of sorts, is absolutely stunning. I'll read you a part of it. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. Nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. I mean, it's just the way that he was able to make it rhyme, the way that he was able to just construct this version of Khayyam it's nothing less than a work of art, in my opinion. I think that everyone should read it. Of course, Victorian poetry, there's a lot of accents, there's a lot of, it could be taken for some sort of, very pompous in a way. But I think that it's necessary to read. I think that poetry in and of itself does have value. Of course, I don't read Farsi or Arabic, so I would love to get a chance, to eventually learn it and read Khayyam's stuff in the original language. But that being said, this translation does not dilute the power of his work. I think it's heavy hitting, it's short, and I think this book, more so than anything, really, or this version, I should say, is really the unultimate one, because what Oxford University Press does, especially in this version, is that it provides reviews. literary reviews from the 1800s when this was released, and you get an unbelievable sense of the reaction of how influential this book was. And I mean, like, hardly, there may be a couple of people who are roasting it, but, you know, again, it's certainly supremely impactful, especially for the time. And I think it really helps to cement why poetry is important. It's not just sounding pretty. It's not just, you know, being able to rhyme. It's actually, you're able to convey such amazing concepts in poetry. It's easy to read. It's short to read. And I think that this book really helped to spearhead that as well. So I really enjoyed it. I think that you can't, like, if you're a fan of poetry, definitely read it. You will not be worse for wear for it. You may find some of the language a little bit difficult. I know I was consulting the notes a lot. That's maybe just because, again, it's an antiquated style of the English language, which, of course, you know, we're almost 200 years past that point, so it's kind of difficult sometimes to, you know, to keep a good flow with it. That being said, I think FitzGerald does a great job with it. Yeah, if you're a fan of poetry, definitely give this one a read. It's, like I said, you won't be worse for wear. If you're just a casual and you want something cool to pick up, or if you're just interested about that time, like the Islamic Golden Age, pick it up. I would say that it's definitely not something to skip out on. That said, if you're not the biggest fan of poetry, or if you don't want to have to, you know, keep consulting notes or overanalyze a book, you might want to set this one out. That being said, I think it's certainly, like I said before, it's certainly a fantastic book of poems, and I think that no one will be worse for wear for reading it, because, again, it is, you know, it provides such a snapshot into an amazing mind. And also, we can't skip out on FitzGerald here either. I think he did a fantastic job of respecting the source material while making it his own creation as well. So give it a read. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Thanks for watching.